Hi, welcome back to our class. In our last video, we had a brief introduction about leverage buyouts. But as you may want to ask, why should I buy another firm with money that is almost all borrowed? In this video, we will discuss the profit model of LBOs. The disproportionately high level of debt incurred by the target is supported by its projected cash flow, EBITDA. Let's suppose a target company has EBITDA of $125 million in the last 12 months and is acquired by a financial sponsor at a price of 8 times its EBITDA. So it means the enterprise value of the target company equals $1 billion. And let us suppose the sponsor uses 17% debt and 13% equity to finance this acquisition, which means the sponsor contributes $300 million equity and borrows another $700 million in debt to finance the acquisition. After acquiring the target, the operating cash flow of the target is used to repay the interest and principal of debt. Suppose the sponsor holds the target for 5 years. During this holding period, operating cash flow will be used to pay down debt. Suppose the total money used to pay down debt equals $300 million. At the end of 5 years, the remaining debt should equal the difference between the initial amount of debt, $700 million, and debt repayment, $300 million, and equal $400 million. And if we assume the enterprise value of the target stays the same at the time of exit, which is an appropriate assumption, if the macro environment of the lending market keeps EBITDA multiple stable and the target maintains its operating performance, then the portion of equity should equal the difference between enterprise value of $1 billion and the remaining value of debt, $300 million, and equal $600 million. So the financial sponsor can double the value of its equity investment from $300 million to $600 million in this 5-year holding period. This is equivalent to an IRR of 14.9%. In order to illustrate the power of leverage, we will use the same example but change the assumption of initial leverage to 80%. So the sponsor contributes $200 million equity and borrows another $800 million in debt to finance the acquisition. The operating performance of the target does not change, but now interest payment should be higher for higher amount of debt. Now, let us say the target can use $260 million to repay debt during the 5-year holding period. At the end of 5 years, the amount of remaining debt should equal the difference between the initial amount of debt, $800 million, and debt repayment of $260, and equal $540 million. And the value of equity at the time of exit should equal the difference between enterprise value $1 billion and the value of remaining debt, $540 million, and equal $460 million. So the financial sponsor can increase the value of its equity from $200 million to $460 million. This means an IRR of 18.1%. So the sponsors can realize a higher return with higher leverage. Next, after acquiring a target, the financial buyer who now has control over the board can try to improve the operating efficiency of the target through active management. It may be realistic to assume that the financial sponsor can improve the EBITDA of the target from $125 million to $150 million. In this case, if we assume the macro environment of the lending market is stable, and the target still sells at 8 times its EBITDA at the time of exit, the target should be worth 1,200 million. And under the assumption of improved operating efficiency, it is appropriate to assume a larger amount of money can be used to pay down debt. Let us assume a total of $315 million are used to pay down debt. If the financial sponsor still uses 70% debt in its acquisition, the initial amount of debt should be the same, $700 million, and the initial contribution of equity is also the same, $300 million, and after 5 years, the value of remaining debt should equal the difference between the initial value of debt, $300 million, and debt repayment of $350 million, and equal $350 million. And the value of sponsor's equity at the time of exit should equal the value of the target at exit, $1,200 million, and the value of remaining debt, $350 million, and equal $850 million. So, with improved profit margins, the sponsor can increase the value of its equity from $300 million to $850 million. This is equivalent to an IRR of 23.2%. The market pricing of a target largely depends on macroeconomic conditions. Traditionally, a target has been priced with an EBITDA multiple ranging from 7 times to 10 times, according to Standard & Poor's leverage commentary. When selling a target, a financial sponsor may try to time the market and sell when the multiples are relatively high. So lastly, suppose our financial sponsor can exit at a multiple of 8.5 times its EBITDA. In order to make this example comparable to our last one, let's assume this sponsor can improve profit margin by increasing EBITDA from $125 million to $150 million. So, at the time of exit, the enterprise value of the target should equal 8.5 times EBITDA, which equals $1,275 million. Suppose the other assumptions do not change and the value of total debt repayment is also $350 million with improved profit margin. So at the end of year 5, the value of equity should equal the difference between the value of the enterprise, $1,275 million, and the value of remaining debt, $350 million, and equal $925 million. So in this case, the financial sponsor can increase the value of its equity from $300 million to $925 million. This is equivalent to an IRR of 25.3%. Till now, we have illustrated how financial sponsors may increase the value of their equity investment through deleverage, improving operating efficiency of the target, and selling at higher multiples. But there are also risks associated in this model. First, a target may not be able to deleverage if there is a worsening of its operating cash flow, which is possible in a dynamic business world. The cash-generating ability of the target is the key to the success of the LBO model. In addition to its impact on deleveraging, a lower EBITDA also has an adverse impact on the value of the target at the time of exit. Next, if the macro environment of the market went bad, the targets may only sell at lower multiples, and the equity investment of the financial sponsors can suffer a loss in the above scenarios. Okay, In this video, we have discussed the profit model of LBOs. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we will learn about LBO exit strategies.